But he's not just president. He's not the president of a company, of a club or something, of an establishment. If you have a private firm, you can pick only those you like, only those who are loyal to you. But when you are president, the president of a country, a president of a very powerful country, of someone of a the most powerful military force and all of that, having to do with deal with other nations and all that. You need people who have wealth and wealth of experience in dealing with these other countries and who could give proper advice. And so there appear to be some deficit in the wealth of experience of those that Trump has picked in his second term. The United States military has, you know, professional service, have people who have risen through the ranks, who are qualified to do their jobs, you know. But you know that in terms of decision making, the final decision making is done by the political guys, the political appointees and the elected president. They are the ones that make the decision. Yes, they seek the counsel of the military, they seek the counsel of the chairman of joint chief of staff, they seek the counsel of other military personnel. But those who will make the final decision as to these things are politicians, people who were elected into office, who may not necessarily have a military background and all that. And these politicians will pick advisors around them, you know, and those advisors oftentimes are politicians and they look at things from the political angle, you know. So that is why you often need people with, military experience to be up with wealth of military experience to be appointed as the head of the Ministry of Defense or the Ministry of War, and other ministries, other departments. You need people with a wealth of experience, such that when decisions are being made, it will be made from the background of well informed and well thought of plan, advice, and stuff like that. So there is some deficit of experience around Trump, and then you know there is this talk of whether enough consultation was made, broad consultation among people with requisite experience and knowledge in the Middle East, because a number of people, experts, have come out to say there doesn't seem to be a plan, because the reason for this attack has been shifting from saying that, oh, there was an imminent threat and it has to be put down, to, oh, Israel wanted to go and attack Iran, and they felt that, oh, if Israel should go alone, it will expose United States assets in the Middle East, and so the United States kind of escorted Israel or something like that to carry out this, attack. To it could be regime change is the agenda, to remove the leadership, and when you remove the leadership, there will be a popular uprising of the people, who were already protesting before in January and February, and who have come under strong attacks by agents of the state. So the thinking was that, oh, if there's decapitation, removal of the top leadership of the Iranian leadership government, that there will be popular uprising and all that. So they've been shifting narrative, shifting talk of why this attack on Iran took place. And what is obvious is that a number of things has become obvious. First, we know that before this attack on February 28th, the chairman of the Joint Chief, as reported by Wall Street Journal and other newspapers, Kane, chairman of the Joint Chief, told Trump that they shouldn't. There was this advice that the United States military, the sailors and all that, they've been overstretched. They've been involved in campaigns in Venezuela, in Nigeria, and in other places. They're overstretched. They've not had time to rest and all of that. That the attack on Iran should not take place or should be delayed so that the military could rest, and a lot of resources has already been expended in other areas, and so it will not be wise to go attacking Iran. So that information leaked and it was revealed in reputable journals like the Wall Street Journal, saying the military hierarchy were opposed to attacking Iran. We heard that. And now with the attack on Iran, and we see that there's the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a narrow strip through which oil and other commodities are taken out from the Middle East to other parts of the world. We are now getting information that the military top leadership told Trump that an attack on Iran would precipitate Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz, and doing that, a large proportion of global trade will be affected because transport of oil and other resources cannot pass through the Strait of Hormuz. He was told about that and the fear of the consequences of that, but it seemed as if Trump and Trump administration did not pay heed to that. You know, and the talk of the retaliation of Iran, it was made known to the president that yes, there was a threat that Iran could retaliate on other Gulf countries. So this warnings, this advice, to Trump and Trump administration was not adhered to. It was not. They didn't pay heed to it. And because we know that they didn't pay heed to it because they seen Trump and XZ, they've said as much, they did not expect the level of retaliation of Iran. They didn't expect that level of retaliation. They didn't expect that Iran will be firing missiles and Shahid drones to several Gulf countries, to attacking US bases in Bahrain, in UAE, and in Qatar, and in other countries where US bases are, you know, So they were like surprised by that level of attack, but it's very likely that the US military have already laid out some of the consequences of carrying out this conflict. And based on the fact that the US military have been involved in other projects like Venezuela, you know, they would have felt that this time wasn't right. And it is said that the plan, while the US was amassing aircraft carrier and all that in the Middle East, the plan was for this attack to take place somewhere April, May, somewhere towards the middle of the year, right? Well, the only factor that changed it was that Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu got confidential information that the supreme leader was planning to hold a meeting with top leadership of the Iranian government that Saturday. They was to hold a meeting that Saturday. The residence of the supreme leader has an underground bunker, and so the supreme leader was planning to leave the underground bunker upstairs to meet with top leadership of the Iranian government, which is something that was, in hindsight, on the part of the Iranian government, to know that it was a really serious mistake, because you knew that US's forces are accumulating around the Middle East. You knew that Israel is preparing. They've gotten intelligence that there may be a possible attack. But what now happened was the supreme leader and the Iranian leadership thought that it was daytime, right? Previous attack from Iran usually happened in night. From Israel usually happened in the night. Previous attack usually took place in the night. So they calculated that the Iranian leadership could meet in the morning on a Saturday morning without the fear of being attacked during broad daylight. But the Israeli Prime Minister got the information, passed the information to Trump, and said that this was the best opportunity for them to take out the leadership of Iran. And there's this decapitation strategy, that they tried in Iraq when eventually they got Saddam Hussein and all that. It's a strategy that if you take out the top leadership of a country, then the if the country doesn't have leadership and direction, the state or that country is more likely to fall. Like you look at Afghanistan when the Taliban were returning and the president of Afghanistan fled the country, and Afghanistan quickly fell back in the hands of the Taliban. You know, that same idea that Putin of Russia thought that when he invaded Ukraine, that the Ukrainian president Zelensky wasn't a soldier. He was a comedian, an actor in his past before he became president. So Putin reasoned that Zelensky was going to run for his life and leave Ukraine. And so Ukraine, without proper leadership, they could just fold and surrender to Russia. But they made a mistake. Zelensky was offered, the US talked to Zelensky to take him out of Ukraine. But Zelensky refused. Zelensky stayed and led this country to withstand the invasion of Russia. So that decapitation move, either by a strike or by making the circumstances such that the leadership of the country could just run away, will now make the country vulnerable, because without leadership, the system could easily crumble. But in the case of Iran, even when during the first strikes that they took targeted the supreme leader, it had to, because if the supreme leader had advanced information, he could go to his bunker and I think they said he has a command center or something like that. So it had to be a surprise. And Israel had this missile, I've forgotten the name of the missile now. Leaves Earth's atmosphere and comes back in a vertical, fast. It's difficult to detect on time. So they use a specific weapon that will take the supreme leader by surprise and the Iranian leadership by surprise. So they succeeded in taking out the leadership of Iran, but the system that Iran operates, it operates a system whereby even if the top leadership is taken out of the equation, that the system can still hold. And that is what has happened. The system is still holding. The system of leadership that has been created by the Iranian system of theocracy over decades is still holding. Because if a top leader is taken out, there are measures in place to ensure that there is still continuity. And now we have a new leader, the son of the supreme leader, Mushtaba Khamenei.